What if I told you there's a scientific phenomenon where tiny particles literally walk through solid walls? Not around them, not over them, through them. And what if this same principle could unlock every barrier standing between you and your biggest goals? Stay with me for the next few minutes, because you're about to discover the most counterintuitive success hack that nature has been hiding in plain sight. Here's the brutal truth about success that nobody talks about. You've been taught to believe that obstacles are solid, that when you hit a wall, you have exactly 3 options: go over it, go around it, or give up. You've been told that success requires massive action, perfect timing, and often just plain luck. You've been conditioned to think that barriers are, well, barriers. But what if everything you've been taught about overcoming obstacles is fundamentally wrong? What if the biggest breakthroughs in history didn't happen by breaking through barriers, but by completely bypassing them? Think about it. Every single day, you face obstacles that seem impossible. Maybe it's getting that dream job when you don't have the right connections. Maybe it's starting a business when you don't have enough money. Maybe it's breaking into an industry that seems completely locked down. And what do? You bang your head against these walls until you're exhausted, frustrated, and ready to quit. Sound familiar? Now here's where it gets interesting. In 1928, scientists discovered something that shook the very foundation of physics. They found that electrons, these tiny particles, could pass through barriers that should have been completely impossible to cross. Imagine throwing a ball at a brick wall. Common sense says the ball bounces back, right? But in the quantum world, that ball would sometimes just appear on the other side. No damage to the wall, no going around it. It just tunneled through. Scientists called this quantum tunneling, and it happens billions of times every second in the world around you. It's not magic. It's not breaking the rules. It's actually how nature works at its deepest level. And here's the game changer. This same principle applies to breakthrough success in your life. Over the next chapters, I'm going to show you exactly how to use quantum tunneling principles to bypass every major obstacle in your path. But first, let me give you a taste of what's coming. In Chapter 2, you'll discover the tunnel effect, the exact method particles use to pass through barriers, and how you can apply this to your toughest challenges. You'll learn why the barriers you think are solid are actually full of invisible gaps waiting for you to find them. Chapter 3 reveals the mental barriers that are keeping you trapped in conventional thinking. I'll show you how to develop what I call the quantum mindset, the ability to see opportunities where others only see walls. In Chapter 4, we dive deep into the tunneling technique, the strategic approach to bypassing obstacles instead of confronting them head-on. You'll learn when to tunnel, when to wait, and how to identify the weak spots in any barrier. Chapter 5 introduces you to superposition success, the quantum principle that allows you to pursue multiple paths simultaneously until one becomes your reality. This is how you hedge your bets while staying focused on your goals. Chapter 6 explores quantum entanglement in networking and relationships. You'll discover how to create instantaneous opportunities through connections that transcend normal limitations. And finally, Chapter 7 ties it all together, showing you how to live in a permanent quantum state where breakthrough becomes your natural way of operating. But here's what I need you to understand right now. This isn't about positive thinking or wishful hoping. This is about understanding how reality actually works at the deepest level and using those same principles to create breakthrough results in your life. The particle that tunnels through the barrier doesn't hope its way through. It doesn't think positively. It follows specific laws of physics that make the impossible inevitable. And that's exactly what you're going to learn to do. See, most people fail not because they're not smart enough or don't work hard enough. They fail because they're playing by the wrong rules. They're trying to break through walls when they should be tunneling through them. The entrepreneurs who build billion-dollar companies from nothing, the job seekers who land positions they're not qualified for, the innovators who revolutionize entire industries, they're not superhuman. They're using quantum principles, whether they realize it or not. So here's my challenge to you. For the next few chapters, I want you to suspend everything you think you know about overcoming obstacles. I want you to open your mind to the possibility that the rules you've been playing by are incomplete. Because once you understand how quantum tunneling really works, you'll never look at a barrier the same way again. You'll start seeing gaps where others see walls. You'll find paths where others see dead ends. And most importantly, you'll realize that the biggest obstacles in your life aren't actually obstacles at all. They're just energy barriers, waiting for you to quantum tunnel right through them. Are you ready to learn how? Then let's dive into Chapter 2, where we're going to decode the tunnel effect and show you exactly how particles achieve the impossible and how you can too. As I previously told you about particles that can walk through solid walls, I know it sounds crazy, but now I'm going to show you exactly how this works and why it's the key to bypassing every obstacle in your life. Let's start with something you can understand. Imagine you're rolling a ball up a hill. If you don't roll it hard enough, it rolls back down, right? That's basic physics. The ball needs enough energy to get over the hill. Now, in the quantum world, something completely different happens. That ball doesn't need to go over the hill. Sometimes it just appears on the other side. No extra energy required. No going around. It literally tunnels through the hill itself. This is quantum tunneling, and it's happening around you right now. Every time you use your smartphone, quantum tunneling is making it work. Every time you see the sunshine, it's because particles are tunneling through energy barriers inside the sun to create light. But here's what makes this revolutionary for your success. The particle doesn't tunnel because it's trying harder or because it's special. It tunnels because it understands something about reality that most people don't. You see, what we think of as solid barriers aren't actually solid at all. They're made up of energy fields with gaps in them. Think of it like a fence that looks solid from far away, but when you get close, you realize it's full of holes. The particle doesn't see a wall. It sees probability. It sees chance. And most importantly, it sees opportunity where others see obstacles. Now let me show you how this applies to your biggest challenges. Remember that job you wanted but didn't apply for because you didn't meet all the requirements? That's a classic energy barrier. Most people look at job requirements like a solid wall. They think, I need 5 years of experience, but I only have 3. I can't apply, but someone using quantum tunneling principles thinks differently. They understand that job requirements are just energy fields with gaps. They know that companies often hire people who don't meet every requirement if they bring other value. They see the probability, not the barrier. So instead of trying to get those extra 2 years of experience, they find the gaps. Maybe they have skills the company desperately needs. Maybe they know someone on the inside. Maybe they apply during a time when the company is struggling to find candidates. They tunnel through the requirements instead of trying to climb over them or think about starting a business. Most people see the barrier of not having enough money and think they need to save for years or get a massive loan. But quantum tunnelers see the probability gaps. They find investors who believe in their vision. They start with minimal viable products. They find customers who will pay up front. They tunnel through the money barrier instead of trying to break it down. Here's the key difference. Traditional thinking says you need to accumulate enough force to break through barriers. Quantum thinking says you need to find the natural gaps that already exist. Let me give you a real example. In 1976, Steve Jobs and Steve Wozniak wanted to start Apple Computer. They had no money, no business experience, and were working out of a garage. The traditional approach would have been to get business degrees, save money, and build up credentials. That would have taken years. Instead, they found the gaps. They realized that the big computer companies weren't interested in personal computers. They found a market gap that everyone else ignored. They tunneled through the barrier of needing massive capital by starting small and growing organically. They didn't break through the established computer industry. They bypassed it entirely. This is quantum tunneling in action. They saw probability where others saw impossibility. But here's what's crucial to understand. Quantum tunneling isn't random. It follows specific laws. The particle doesn't just hope it will tunnel through. It follows quantum mechanics principles that make tunneling predictable and repeatable. The same is true for success. There are specific principles that make breakthrough predictable. And that's exactly what I'm going to teach you in the coming chapters. First principle: the thinner the barrier, the higher the probability of tunneling through. In success terms, this means you want to find the weakest point in any obstacle, not attack it at its strongest point. Second principle: the longer you persist at the barrier, the higher your chances of tunneling through. But here's the twist: you're not trying to break the barrier. You're waiting for the right probability moment to tunnel through. Third principle: your energy state affects your tunneling probability. Particles with the right energy configuration tunnel more easily. In life terms, this means having the right mindset, skills, and timing dramatically increases your breakthrough chances. Now, I know what you're thinking. This all sounds great in theory, but how do you actually apply it? How do you see these gaps that everyone else misses? That's exactly what we're going to cover in the next chapter. I'm going to show you how to develop what I call them quantum mindset, the mental framework that allows you to see opportunities where others only see obstacles. You'll learn how to identify your personal energy barriers, the limiting beliefs that are keeping you trapped in conventional thinking. More importantly, you'll discover how to dissolve these mental barriers so you can start seeing the probability gaps that lead to breakthrough success. Because here's the truth: the biggest barriers in your life aren't external. They're not the job requirements, the lack of money, or the competition. The biggest barriers are in your mind. They're the beliefs that tell you something is impossible when it's actually just improbable. And improbable things happen every day in the quantum world. They can happen in your world too, once you learn to see reality the way quantum particles do. So get ready, because in Chapter 3, we're going quantum with your mindset. And once you make that shift, you'll never look at obstacles the same way again. In the last chapter, I showed you how quantum particles tunnel through barriers by finding probability gaps. But here's what I didn't tell you. The biggest barrier preventing you from using this power isn't external. It's between your ears. Your mind has been programmed to see the world like old-school physics. Everything is solid. Everything is predictable. If there's a wall, you either break it down or you don't get through. But quantum physics reveals a completely different reality, and once you start thinking quantum, everything changes. Let me show you what I mean. Right now, think about your biggest goal. The thing you really want but haven't achieved yet. Got it? Good. Now I want you to notice what happens in your mind when you think about it. Do you immediately think about all the reasons why it's difficult? Do you start listing the obstacles? Do you feel that familiar weight of all the things you'd need to overcome? That's your classical physics brain talking. It's seeing barriers as solid walls. But a quantum mindset sees something completely different. It sees probability. It sees possibility. It sees gaps where your classical mind sees walls. Here's the problem. From the day you were born, you've been trained to think classically. Your parents told you to be realistic. Your teachers rewarded you for following rules, not for finding creative ways around them. Your culture celebrates hard work and persistence, which are good things. But it rarely celebrates the art of intelligent bypassing. So you developed what I call barrier vision. You became really good at spotting obstacles and really bad at spotting opportunities. You learned to see what's wrong instead of what's possible. Let me give you a perfect example. Most people look at successful entrepreneurs and think they succeeded because they had advantages. They had money, connections, or special skills. That's barrier vision talking. But when you study these entrepreneurs closely, you discover something different. Most of them started with massive disadvantages. They didn't have money, connections, or experience. What they had was quantum vision. They saw probability gaps where others saw impossible barriers. Take Richard Branson. He's dyslexic and was a terrible student. Instead of seeing this as a barrier to success, he developed a quantum mindset around it. He realized that his learning difference made him approach problems differently than everyone else. He turned his supposed weakness into his greatest strength by finding unconventional solutions to business problems. Or consider Oprah Winfrey. Born into poverty, faced discrimination, had every reason to believe success was impossible. But she developed quantum vision early. She saw media opportunities that others missed because she understood her audience in a way that traditional broadcasters couldn't. These aren't superhuman people. They just learned to think quantum instead of classical. So how do you make this shift? How do you develop quantum vision for your own challenges? First, you need to identify your personal energy barriers. These are the limiting beliefs that act like quantum walls in your mind. They're usually invisible to you because you've had them so long. They feel like truth instead of opinion. Common energy barriers include thoughts like, I'm not smart enough, I don't have enough experience, people like me don't achieve things like that, or I missed my chance. These beliefs create solid walls in your mental landscape. But here's what quantum physics teaches us about barriers. They're not solid, they're energy fields with gaps. And the gaps are always bigger than you think. Let's take, I don't have enough experience. In classical thinking, this is a solid wall. You need more experience before you can move forward. But quantum thinking sees this differently. It asks, where are the gaps in this barrier? Maybe you don't have traditional experience, but you have life experience that's actually more valuable. Maybe you have fresh perspective that experienced people have lost. Maybe there are opportunities specifically for people without traditional experience because companies want new thinking. The quantum mind doesn't try to accumulate enough experience to break through the barrier. It finds the gaps where lack of experience is actually an advantage. Here's another example. I don't have the right connections. Classical thinking says you need to network for years to build relationships. Quantum thinking asks, where are the connection gaps? Maybe there are successful people who are actually looking for someone like you to mentor. Maybe there are industry events where everyone else is trying to meet the same people, but there are other valuable connections being ignored. Maybe there are online communities where you can build relationships without geographical limitations. The key is changing your question from, how do I break through this barrier, to where are the gaps in this barrier? But developing quantum vision goes deeper than just reframing obstacles. It's about fundamentally changing how you perceive reality. In quantum mechanics, particles exist in multiple states simultaneously until they're observed. This is called superposition. Before measurement, an electron can be in multiple locations at once. Only when someone observes it does it collapse into one specific location. Your goals work the same way. Right now, your success exists in multiple potential states. The breakthrough you want is already there in probability form. Your job isn't to create it from nothing. Your job is to collapse the probability wave by taking the right action at the right time. This changes everything about how you approach challenges. Instead of trying to force outcomes, you start looking for signs that probability is shifting in your favor. Instead of pushing harder against barriers, you start feeling for the moments when barriers become permeable. Classical thinking says success requires more effort. Quantum thinking says success requires better timing and positioning. Classical thinking says you need to be stronger than your obstacles. Quantum thinking says you need to be smarter about finding the weak points. Classical thinking says failure means you weren't good enough. Quantum thinking says failure means you haven't found the right probability gap yet. This isn't positive thinking or wishful hoping. This is recognizing that reality operates on quantum principles. And when you align your thinking with how reality actually works, breakthrough becomes natural instead of forced. In our next chapter, I'm going to give you the specific technique for finding and exploiting these probability gaps. You'll learn the tunneling technique, the step-by-step method for bypassing obstacles instead of confronting them head-on. Because once you can see the gaps, you need to know exactly how to move through them. And that's where quantum tunneling becomes a practical success tool instead of just an interesting concept. Get ready to learn the most counterintuitive approach to achievement you've ever encountered. Now that you understand quantum thinking, let's get into the practical stuff. I'm going to teach you the exact technique quantum particles use to bypass barriers and how to apply it to any obstacle in your life. But first, let me tell you about the biggest mistake people make when they discover quantum tunneling. They think it means you can just wish your way through obstacles. That's not how it works. Quantum tunneling follows precise laws, and if you want to use it for breakthrough success, you need to follow those same laws. The first law of quantum tunneling is this: you don't attack the strongest part of the barrier. You find the weakest point. In physics, this is where the energy barrier is thinnest. In life, this is where the obstacle has the least resistance. Let me show you what this looks like in practice. Say you want to break into a competitive industry like entertainment. The classical approach is to do what everyone else does. They move to Los Angeles, get headshots, audition for the same roles as thousands of other people. You're attacking the barrier at its strongest point. The quantum approach is completely different. You look for the thinnest part of the barrier. Maybe that's starting in smaller markets where there's less competition. Maybe that's creating your own content instead of auditioning for other people's projects. Maybe that's finding niche areas within entertainment that are underserved. The point is, you're not trying to be better than everyone else at the same game. You're finding a different game where the barriers are naturally thinner. Here's how to identify the thin spots in any barrier. First, ask yourself, where is everyone else not looking? The crowded paths always have the thickest barriers because that's where all the resistance is concentrated. Second, look for timing gaps. Every barrier has moments when it's weaker than usual. Companies have hiring freezes most of the year, but desperate recruiting periods when they'll consider candidates they normally wouldn't. Industries go through cycles where they're more open to outsiders. Third, find the intersection opportunities. These are places where two different fields overlap, but neither field is paying much attention to the overlap. These intersections often have the thinnest barriers because they're new and unexplored. Now, here's the second law of quantum tunneling. Persistence at the barrier increases your probability of breakthrough. But this isn't the kind of persistence you think. Classical persistence is like banging your head against the wall, harder and harder. Quantum persistence is like a particle sitting at the barrier, ready to tunnel through the moment conditions are right. Think of it like this. You're not trying to force your way through. You're positioning yourself at the barrier and waiting for the quantum moment when the barrier becomes permeable. This requires a completely different type of patience and awareness. A perfect example is how Netflix disrupted the entertainment industry. Reed Hastings didn't try to outcompete Blockbuster at their own game. He positioned himself at the barrier between technology and entertainment, waiting for the moment when internet speeds and streaming technology would make his approach viable. He spent years losing money, but he was practicing quantum persistence. He was maintaining his position at the barrier until conditions aligned for breakthrough. When they did, he didn't just succeed, he made Blockbuster completely irrelevant. This brings us to the third law. Your energy state determines your tunneling probability. In physics, particles with certain energy levels tunnel more easily than others. In success terms, this means your mindset, skills, and emotional state dramatically affect your breakthrough chances. You can't tunnel through barriers when you're in a state of desperation, fear, or scarcity. These energy states actually make barriers more solid. You need to be in what I call a quantum state, calm, confident, and focused on probability rather than obstacles. Here's the practical technique for applying quantum tunneling to any challenge in your life. Step 1. Map the barrier. Don't just identify what you want to achieve. Understand exactly what's preventing you from achieving it. What are the specific requirements, gatekeepers, or limitations? You need to see the barrier clearly before you can find the gaps. Step 2. Find the thin spots. Where is this barrier weakest? Where is there less competition, fewer requirements, or more flexibility? This might require research, conversation with people in your target field, or experimenting with different approaches. Step 3. Position yourself at the thin spot. This isn't about making a single attempt and hoping for the best. You're positioning yourself for sustained opportunity. You're building relationships, developing relevant skills, and staying aware of changing conditions. Step 4. Maintain quantum persistence. You're not forcing anything. You're staying present at the barrier, ready to move when conditions align. This requires patience, but it's active patience, not passive waiting. Step 5. Recognize the quantum moment. There will be moments when the barrier becomes permeable. Maybe it's a key person leaving and creating opportunity. Maybe it's market conditions shifting. Maybe it's new technology opening up possibilities. You need to be aware enough to recognize these moments and ready enough to act on them. Let me give you a real example of this technique in action. Sarah Blakely wanted to create a billion-dollar business, but had no experience, no money, and no connections. The classical approach would have been to get business training, find investors, and follow traditional startup paths. Instead, she used quantum tunneling. She identified the thinnest part of the barrier in the women's undergarment industry, shapewear that actually worked. She positioned herself there by creating a prototype and personally visiting department stores. She practiced quantum persistence by continuing to refine her approach despite repeated rejections. When Neiman Marcus finally said yes, she was ready. That one breakthrough led to others, and within a few years, she had built Spanx into a billion-dollar company. She didn't break through the barrier. She tunneled through it by finding the weak spots and positioning herself for breakthrough. Now I know what you're thinking. This sounds like it takes a long time. Sometimes it does. But here's what's interesting about quantum tunneling. When the breakthrough comes, it often happens much faster than classical approaches. Instead of slowly climbing over the barrier, you suddenly find yourself on the other side. The results can seem almost instantaneous to outside observers, even though you've been positioning yourself for quantum tunneling for months or years. In our next chapter, I'm going to show you how to accelerate this process using what quantum physics calls superposition. You'll learn how to pursue multiple paths simultaneously, so you're not dependent on just one barrier becoming permeable. This is where quantum tunneling becomes truly powerful, because you're not just waiting for one opportunity. You're creating multiple probability streams that all lead to your desired outcome. Here's something that will blow your mind about quantum physics. A particle can literally exist in multiple places at the same time. It's not in one location or another. It's in all possible locations simultaneously until someone observes it. Scientists call this superposition, and it's about to revolutionize how you approach your goals. Most people make a fatal mistake when pursuing success. They put all their energy into one path, one opportunity, one approach. They think focus means doing only one thing. But quantum physics reveals that the most successful outcomes emerge from exploring multiple possibilities simultaneously. Think about it this way. When you flip a coin, classical thinking says it will be either heads or tails. But in the quantum world, that coin exists as both heads and tails until it lands. The particle doesn't choose one state. It maintains all possible states until reality forces it to collapse into one outcome. Your success works exactly the same way. Right now, you exist in multiple potential futures. In one possibility, you achieve your goal through path A. In another, you succeed through path B. In yet another, an unexpected path C emerges that you never even considered. Most people collapse their superposition too early. They pick one path and abandon all others. They think this is focus, but it's actually limitation. They're reducing their quantum probability instead of maximizing it. Let me show you what superposition success looks like in practice. Elon Musk didn't just focus on one company. He simultaneously pursued Tesla, SpaceX, Neuralink, and other ventures. Critics called him unfocused, but he was actually practicing quantum superposition. Each company increased his overall probability of breakthrough success. When Tesla was struggling, SpaceX was succeeding. When SpaceX faced challenges, Tesla was advancing. He wasn't spreading himself thin. He was creating multiple probability streams that all reinforced each other. Here's the key insight. These weren't completely separate ventures. They were interconnected possibilities exploring different aspects of the same vision. Tesla advanced electric vehicles, SpaceX advanced sustainable technology, Neuralink explored human-machine interfaces. Each path informed and strengthened the others. This is very different from just having multiple hobbies or interests. Superposition success means creating multiple paths that all lead toward the same ultimate outcome, but through different routes. Let's say your goal is financial independence. Classical thinking picks one path, maybe starting a business, or investing in real estate, or climbing the corporate ladder. You put all your effort into that one approach. Superposition thinking explores multiple paths simultaneously. You might start a side business while advancing in your career, while also building an investment portfolio, while developing a skill that could become freelance income. Each path has different probability patterns and different timing. When one path faces barriers, another might be opening up. When market conditions hurt your investments, your career might be accelerating. When your industry goes through layoffs, your side business might be ready to scale up. You're not hedging your bets out of fear. You're maximizing your quantum probability of breakthrough by maintaining multiple superposition states. But here's where most people get it wrong. They think superposition means doing everything at once with equal energy. That's not how quantum particles work, and it's not how superposition success works either. In quantum mechanics, a particle in superposition has different probability amplitudes for different states. Some possibilities are more likely than others, but all possibilities remain active until collapse occurs. In your success journey, you should have different energy allocations for different paths. Maybe you put 60% of your effort into your primary approach, 25% into your secondary approach, and 15% into exploring wildcard opportunities. The exact percentages don't matter. What matters is keeping multiple paths active. Here's the really powerful part. When you maintain superposition, you start getting feedback from multiple probability streams. You learn faster because you're getting information from different approaches simultaneously. You spot opportunities earlier because you're positioned in multiple spaces. Most importantly, you develop what I call quantum intuition. You start sensing which path is gaining probability and which is losing momentum. You can shift your energy allocation based on real-time feedback from multiple experiments. This is exactly how Amazon became dominant. Jeff Bezos didn't just focus on books. He maintained superposition across multiple product categories, multiple revenue streams, multiple market opportunities. Books, electronics, cloud computing, logistics, media content. Each area informed the others and created compound probability effects. When one area faced challenges, another was breaking through. When competitors attacked one market, Amazon was already strong in others. The company existed in multiple successful states simultaneously. Now let me give you the practical framework for implementing superposition success. First, identify your core outcome. What's the ultimate result you want to achieve? Don't confuse tactics with outcomes. Financial independence is an outcome. Starting a business is a tactic. Being recognized as an expert is an outcome. Writing a book is a tactic. Second, map multiple pathways to that outcome. What are all the different ways someone could achieve this result? Don't limit yourself to conventional approaches. Include paths that seem unconventional or unlikely. Remember, you're exploring probability space, not committing to specific routes. Third, start small experiments in multiple directions. You're not launching full-scale efforts in every direction. You're running small tests to see which paths have natural momentum. Think of these as quantum probes, exploring different probability territories. Fourth, allocate energy based on feedback. As you get results from your experiments, shift more energy toward the paths showing promise and reduce energy on paths facing consistent barriers. But don't completely abandon any path unless you get definitive negative feedback. Fifth, watch for quantum entanglement between your paths. Often, success in one area will unexpectedly accelerate another area. The skills you develop in Path A become valuable in Path B. The relationships you build in Path C create opportunities in Path D. These connections multiply your overall probability of breakthrough. Sixth, stay alert for collapse opportunities. There will be moments when one of your superposition states wants to collapse into definitive success. When this happens, you need to be ready to shift most of your energy into that path. But even then, don't completely abandon your other options until success is secure. The beauty of superposition success is that it feels completely natural once you start practicing it. Instead of the stress of betting everything on one approach, you feel the confidence of knowing you're exploring the full range of possibilities. In our next chapter, I'm going to show you how to supercharge this entire process through quantum entanglement principles. You'll learn how to create connections between your different paths and other people's success journeys, creating instant opportunities that seem to come from nowhere. Because when you combine superposition with entanglement, you're not just maximizing your own probability of success. You're tapping into a network effect that accelerates breakthrough for everyone involved. Einstein called it spooky action at a distance, and it drove him crazy. When two particles become quantum entangled, measuring one particle instantly affects the other, no matter how far apart they are. Change the spin of particle A, and particle B immediately responds, even if it's on the other side of the universe. Scientists have proven this happens faster than the speed of light. There's no signal traveling between the particles. They're connected in a way that transcends normal space and time. And this same phenomenon is the secret behind every overnight success story you've ever heard. Think about the last time you heard someone say, "I can't believe how lucky they got." Someone lands their dream job through a chance encounter. Someone meets their perfect business partner at a coffee shop. Someone's social media post goes viral for no apparent reason. That's not luck. That's quantum entanglement at work in human networks. Here's what most people don't understand about networking and opportunity creation. They think it works like classical physics. You meet people, you build relationships slowly over time, and eventually those relationships pay off. It's linear, predictable, and requires lots of time and effort, but quantum entanglement reveals a completely different reality. When you properly entangle yourself with the right people and opportunities, results can happen instantaneously without any apparent cause and effect relationship. Let me show you how this works. When particles become entangled, they share quantum information. They become part of the same quantum system instead of separate individual entities. The same thing happens with human connections when they're created with quantum principles. Most networking is classical. You meet someone, exchange business cards, maybe follow up with an email, and hope something develops eventually. You're treating each relationship as a separate, isolated connection. Quantum networking is completely different. You're not just building individual relationships. You're becoming entangled with entire systems of people, opportunities, and possibilities. When something changes anywhere in that system, the effects ripple through the entire network instantly. Here's a perfect example. Reid Hoffman, the founder of LinkedIn, didn't just build a social networking company. He became quantum entangled with the entire Silicon Valley ecosystem. He invested in companies, advised entrepreneurs, and connected talented people across multiple industries. When one of his connections succeeded, it created opportunities for others in his network. When PayPal sold to eBay, it didn't just make Reid wealthy. It created what became known as the PayPal Mafia, a network of entangled entrepreneurs who went on to found Tesla, YouTube, Yelp, and dozens of other successful companies. Each success amplified the others. Each new opportunity created more connections. The network became a quantum system where individual success turned into collective breakthrough. This is radically different from traditional networking, where you're trying to get something from each relationship. In quantum entanglement networking, you're trying to become part of a success system where everyone's advancement accelerates everyone else's opportunities. But here's the key insight that most people miss. Quantum entanglement only happens between particles that interact in specific ways. You can't just force entanglement. It emerges naturally when certain conditions are met. The same is true for human networks. You can't force quantum connections, but you can create the conditions where they naturally emerge. First condition, shared quantum states. In physics, particles must be in compatible quantum states to become entangled. In networking, people must be operating at similar energy levels and with compatible goals. You can't quantum entangle with someone who's in complete scarcity mindset if you're operating from abundance, or vice versa. This is why trying to network your way up several levels rarely works. The quantum states are too different, but networking across at your level, or with people who are moving in similar directions, creates natural entanglement opportunities. Second condition, meaningful interaction. Particles don't become entangled just by being near each other. They have to interact in ways that affect their quantum states. Similarly, superficial networking rarely creates quantum connections. You need interactions that actually change both people's possibilities. This means going beyond small talk and business card exchanges. You're looking for conversations where both people gain new perspectives, opportunities, or capabilities. You're creating value that wouldn't exist without the interaction. Third condition, system thinking instead of individual thinking. Quantum entanglement connects particles to larger quantum systems. In networking, you're not just building one-to-one relationships. You're connecting to networks of networks, systems of systems. When you help someone in your network, you're not just helping them. You're strengthening the entire system they're connected to. When you share an opportunity, you're not just creating value for one person. You're increasing the quantum probability of the whole network. Here's how to practically apply quantum entanglement to accelerate your success. Start by identifying your quantum network. These aren't necessarily your closest friends or your industry colleagues. These are the people who are operating at similar energy levels and moving toward compatible goals. They might be in completely different fields, but they share your quantum state of growth and possibility. Next, look for entanglement opportunities. Where can you create value for multiple people simultaneously? Where can you connect others in ways that benefit everyone involved? Where can you contribute to projects that strengthen entire systems rather than just individual outcomes? Practice what I call quantum generosity. Instead of networking to get something, focus on giving in ways that amplify across the network. Share opportunities, make introductions, and provide value without immediate expectation of return. The quantum effects will return to you, but often through unexpected paths. Pay attention to synchronicities and sudden opportunities. When you're properly entangled with quantum networks, opportunities often appear with perfect timing in ways that seem almost magical. Someone mentions exactly what you need, just when you need it. You meet the right person at exactly the right moment. Projects align in ways that benefit everyone involved. These aren't coincidences. They're quantum effects rippling through your entangled network. Most importantly, maintain your quantum state. Stay in growth mode, abundance mindset, and possibility thinking. If you slip into scarcity, fear, or competition, you'll disconnect from quantum networks and fall back into classical networking patterns. The most successful people you know aren't just lucky or talented. They've become quantum entangled with success systems where individual advancement accelerates collective opportunity. They're not just building their own careers. They're participating in quantum networks where everyone's success amplifies everyone else's possibilities. In our final chapter, I'm going to show you how to integrate all these quantum principles into a permanent way of operating. You'll learn how to live in a constant quantum state where breakthrough becomes your natural way of moving through the world. Because once you understand how quantum reality actually works, you'll never go back to classical thinking about success. This is it. Everything we've covered in the previous chapters has been building to this moment. You now understand quantum tunneling, superposition, and entanglement. You know the techniques and principles, but knowing something and living it are two completely different things. Most people will watch this series, get excited about the concepts, maybe try a few techniques, and then gradually slip back into classical thinking. They'll return to seeing obstacles as solid walls, focusing on single paths and networking in conventional ways. But you have the opportunity to do something different. You can make quantum thinking your permanent operating system. You can live in a quantum state where breakthrough becomes your natural way of moving through the world. Here's what I mean by living in the quantum state. In quantum physics, particles don't have fixed properties until they're measured. They exist in a state of pure possibility, ready to collapse into whatever outcome the situation requires. They're simultaneously prepared for multiple realities. You can operate the same way. Instead of locking yourself into fixed identities, rigid plans, and predetermined outcomes, you can exist in a state of dynamic possibility. You become someone who's simultaneously prepared for multiple paths to success. This isn't about being indecisive or unfocused. It's about being quantum ready. It's about maintaining the mental flexibility and strategic positioning that allows you to tunnel through barriers, maintain superposition across multiple opportunities, and stay entangled with success networks. Let me show you what this looks like in daily practice. When most people wake up, they think about their problems, what obstacles they need to overcome, what challenges they're facing, what's wrong with their current situation. They start each day in classical problem-solving mode. Someone living in the quantum state thinks differently. They wake up thinking about possibility. What opportunities might emerge today? What probability gaps might open up? What unexpected connections might form? They start each day in quantum opportunity mode. This isn't positive thinking or wishful hoping. It's strategic awareness based on how reality actually works at the quantum level. Opportunities are constantly emerging and disappearing. Barriers are constantly shifting. Networks are constantly creating new connections. When you're aware of this quantum flux, you position yourself to catch possibilities that others miss. Here's your daily quantum practice. Every morning, instead of planning your day around overcoming obstacles, plan your day around exploring possibilities. Ask yourself, what experiments can I run today? What weak spots and barriers can I investigate? What value can I create for my quantum network? Throughout the day, practice quantum observation. Pay attention to synchronicities, unexpected opportunities, and moments when barriers seem more permeable than usual. Classical thinking dismisses these as coincidences. Quantum thinking recognizes them as probability waves. You can choose to collapse into reality. When you face obstacles during the day, immediately shift to quantum mode. Instead of asking, how do I break through this? Ask, where are the gaps in this barrier? Instead of pushing harder with the same approach, look for entirely different approaches that bypass the obstacle completely. Practice superposition decision-making. When you have important choices to make, don't immediately collapse into one option. Explore multiple paths simultaneously until clear feedback tells you which direction has the highest probability of success. Maintain your quantum networks actively. Every day, create value for someone in your entangled network without expecting immediate return. Share opportunities, make connections, and contribute to projects that strengthen the entire system you're part of. But here's the most important part of living in the quantum state. You must stay comfortable with uncertainty. Classical thinking seeks certainty and control. Quantum thinking embraces uncertainty as the natural state where possibilities exist. This is hard for most people because we've been trained to fear uncertainty. We think uncertainty means danger or lack of progress. But in quantum reality, uncertainty is where all possibilities exist. When you collapse uncertainty too quickly into false certainty, you eliminate most of your potential outcomes. Living in the quantum state means being comfortable saying, "I don't know exactly how this will work out, but I'm positioned for multiple positive outcomes." It means making decisions based on probability rather than certainty. It means staying open to paths you haven't even imagined yet. Here's what changes when you master this approach. First, you stop being surprised by sudden opportunities. When something appears out of nowhere, you recognize it as quantum effects from your positioning and network entanglement. You're ready to act quickly because you've been maintaining superposition across multiple possibilities. Second, you stop being discouraged by obstacles. When barriers appear, you immediately start looking for weak spots and alternative paths. You don't waste energy trying to force through strong points because you understand that quantum tunneling requires finding natural gaps. Third, you stop feeling isolated in your success journey. You understand that you're part of quantum networks, where individual advancement accelerates collective opportunity. You're not competing against others. You're participating in success systems. Fourth, you develop what I call quantum intuition. You start sensing when probability is shifting in your favor. You feel when barriers are becoming permeable. You notice when entanglement effects are accelerating opportunities. This isn't mystical. It's pattern recognition based on quantum principles. Most importantly, you stop living in scarcity and start operating from abundance. Classical thinking assumes limited opportunities and zero-sum competition. Quantum thinking recognizes that possibilities are constantly emerging and that success systems create expansion for everyone involved. This creates a completely different quality of life. Instead of the stress of forcing outcomes and battling obstacles, you experience the flow of positioning yourself for natural breakthrough. Instead of the exhaustion of classical persistence, you practice quantum readiness, but maintaining the quantum state requires ongoing practice. Classical thinking is deeply conditioned in our culture. You'll constantly face pressure to return to linear planning, obstacle-focused thinking, and individual competition. Here's how to maintain your quantum state long-term. Surround yourself with other quantum thinkers whenever possible. Read about quantum success stories. Study the biographies of people who achieved breakthrough through positioning and timing rather than just hard work. Create daily reminders of quantum principles. Set alerts on your phone that prompt you to look for probability gaps. Schedule regular reviews of your superposition strategies. Build quantum thinking into your planning processes. Most importantly, celebrate quantum successes when they happen. When synchronicities create opportunities, when barriers suddenly become permeable, when network effects accelerate your progress, acknowledge that these aren't coincidences. They're quantum effects from your strategic positioning. The world is shifting toward quantum reality in every field. Technology, business, relationships, and success itself are becoming more quantum and less classical. The people who understand and apply these principles will have enormous advantages over those who remain locked in classical thinking. You now have the knowledge and tools to join the quantum success pioneers. The question is, will you use them? Will you commit to living in the quantum state where breakthrough becomes natural instead of forced? The particles are already showing you the way. Now it's time to follow their lead and tunnel through to the success that's waiting on the other side of every barrier you face.